What's the most f***ed up thing you've seen a friend do? Story 1. We were working in an old lady's attic and he kicked the shit out of a pipe on purpose, then went and told her it needed to be replaced. I never worked with him again after that. Story 2. A girl was falling down drunk, totally out of it, no drink spiked. She had been doing a crazy amount of shots without knowing they were double shots. This one friend of mine insisted on taking her home by himself, and 3 of the other people in the group insisted more strongly to come along and help her get home. The whole way back, he kept trying to assure us that he had things under control and didn't need our help, and it became clearer and clearer he was planning on raping her. We aggressively told him to knock it off and got her home. First, he tried to insist he should stay with her to make sure she's okay, which we vetoed. Then we caught him trying to get her keys out of her purse so he could come back inside. When that happened, we'd had enough and things got rough. We didn't beat him up, but we very forcefully got him out of her student residence building. She was in bad shape, so we found a friend of hers from down the hall who agreed to come over and look after her. We were worried she might throw up in her sleep or something. Later on that night, he got caught pounding on her dorm room door by the same friend after he managed to sneak back into the building by following someone else when they came in. The whole friend group split up over staying friends with him, but f*** that guy. She was literally passed out on her feet and totally incoherent. Reply 1. I had a similar situation where I was told at the DD to drop this catatonically drunk girl home, and I made one of her friends and one of mine come along for the ride. I was terrified I could have ended up accused of some shit like that. No way I was going to drop her home alone. Story 3. Was out for the night with 2 of my friends, and we were all crashing at one of their parents' houses that night. Get drunk, head home, and decide to grab some snacks from the kitchen before hitting the sack. Out of nowhere, my friend gets a watermelon out of the fridge and dares my other friend to fuck it. We're teenage lads at this point, so we all find this hilarious, especially when my friend actually does put his dick in the thing. But that's not the fucked up bit. My friend whose house it was then takes the fucked watermelon and screams, "Yeah!" and starts to eat where it had been fucked. He then threw it full force into the wall and went to bed. Needless to say, me and the watermelon went to bed that night feeling a bit weird about the melon munching friend. Never stayed there again. Story 4. My best friend had just broken up with my brother who had moved over 1,000 miles and changed jobs to be with her, citing personal differences. My brother was devastated, but I tried to respect her decision and be a source of support for both of them, especially because they truly weren't the best fit. But then she shared with me, because she knew that I loved her and would be happy for her as long as she was happy, that she'd been cheating on my brother for the past month and had found her soulmate. The depth of my brother's heartbreak, already immense, was further compounded by the infidelity. To my bewilderment, she truly couldn't understand why I was ending the friendship. Seemed so distraught that I would end a years-long relationship over something so small. And I still can't comprehend why she thought telling me would result in anything other than a complete door slam. Anna, you still suck, and I'm still angry. Edit. ETA that I had also asked her to be the maid of honor in my upcoming wedding. Ironic. Wow, that's rough. Betraying your brother and expecting you to be cool with it? That's some next-level lack of understanding and empathy right there. It's hard to believe how people we think we know can shock us with their actions. You definitely made the right call to end the friendship. And the audacity of her to think she could still be your maid of honor? Story 5. A guy I worked with was about to take his wife on a trip back to their mutual hometown in another state. They had a pair of delightful kittens, and they asked me if I could watch them while they were gone. I had little experience with cats, but these 2 were just wonderfully playful. So I gave him a call when he got back to arrange to return the kittens, but he said they had picked up a non-cat-friendly dog on the journey, and he would just drop off the kittens in the woods. Needless to say, I kept them, and they were wonderful furry friends for me and eventually to my wife and kids. I still think about what would have happened to them if I had not been in the right place at the right time. Story 6. When I was a kid, I found a baby bat that seemed injured, so I made a home for it in an old coffee can to get better. I went inside to eat lunch, and after eating, I went to check on my new friend, and it was nowhere to be found. Neither was my brother or neighbor, best friend at the time. I eventually found them on a trail by my house laughing hysterically. They were laughing at the bat that they had just dismembered. Still think about that often, and it's been 21 years or so. Edit. My brother was always abusive towards animals and other kids in the neighborhood and at school, not to mention home. He suffered a lot of mental health issues, and for some reason, I tried to use that to justify his actions. But truthfully, I know he was just a dick. It was quite difficult growing up with him, and a couple of years ago, he made an executive decision to leave his life. Even with all the bad shit that happened, it still messed me up a bit. I definitely don't think of him as a good person, but there was some good in there somewhere. My neighbor was similar but more mean towards people, and when they were together, they created a shit duo. He also ended up taking his own life. It can't be easy holding on to so much hate. Story 7. A friend of mine, and this is the reason I stopped associating with both of them. My friend's friend had just purchased new Egyptian cotton sheets, and his wife's cat had apparently gotten sick and threw up and shit on them. He grabbed the cat, slammed it into the wall, grabbed a lighter, and started to burn the cat's face off. It took me a little bit to process what was happening and to try and stop it, but the poor cat had damage done, lost an eye and whiskers on his left side. When I could tell him to finally let go of the cat, I took it to the emergency vet, told the vet the story of what happened. The cat was already on file for other incidents of injury, sadly, and they notified the wife. I don't really know what else came out of that as I left, so I recommended she think about divorce and blocked both of them on all methods of communication. It sucked because the dude who burnt the cat was in a really good band that we would see live quite frequently, so that kind of stopped some of my social outings for a bit. But I wasn't willing to be around psychopaths like that. Story 8. So I had this roommate in college who wasn't the most popular among my friends, but he honestly wasn't a bad guy at all. Maybe a little smug, but honestly that's not at all unusual for people that age. I certainly wasn't any better, and he grew out of it later. But he just kept getting pink eye, and neither he nor I knew why. So anyway, we were hanging out in the dorm room with two of our friends from high school when he, my roommate, stepped out to go to class. As soon as he was out of the door, friend 1 jumped up, dropped his pants and underwear, and crop dusted my roommate's pillow. Apparently, he'd been sneaking in and doing this regularly for weeks, but this time decided to let me and friend 2 in on the secret, and additionally just sharted all over the pillow. Visible flecks of shit all over it and the bed. Friend 2 and I didn't think it was nearly as entertaining as friend 1 did, and immediately informed my roommate. Apparently, friend 1 had also been pissing in people's soda bottles. We dropped him from the group pretty thoroughly after all that. Edit. I've been told that's not how pink eye works, so maybe that's just something me and my friend convinced ourselves happened during subsequent retellings? Seriously, what was going on in friend 1's head to pull stunts like that? Good on you and friend 2 for not playing along and telling your roommate. I can even imagine how disgusted he must have felt. Story 9. If we're talking about ex-friends, he beat his child for touching my guitar, the one I brought over specially to show the boy and let him play with. By the way, he was 3. Story 10. A girl I was close with for quite a while. We'd slept together a few times. She invited me to a house party and insisted that she wanted it to be the night that we would make our involvement public. About an hour into the party, she goes off into another room with a different guy and spends the whole night there. Clearly, her friends had been briefed about her intention to hook up with me because they proceeded to lecture me on how sleeping with a drunk girl would be taking advantage and that I shouldn't put my desire to lose my virginity ahead of common decency. She was the first girl I slept with. As people weren't aware of that, they therefore thought I was a virgin. I spilled the beans that actually it wasn't the first time, and that she had been involved with me previously, but that didn't change the fact that she was off with some other guy that night. So instead of my original plan of spending the next day with her, I canceled my leave and went to work. Not the best idea considering I hardly slept out of sheer frustration. After work, I received a call. It turned out that my actions had sparked a huge argument, and the girl was mad at me for telling her friends and ruining our little secret. Should have taken that as enough of a warning sign to end things entirely, but I was stupid and stayed around her for years after that. Story 11. Brag about cheating on her husband multiple times. Played the victim when he caught her and left her, wailing how much she loved him, and got back together just to cheat on him again not even a couple weeks later. Gave words of support to a friend of hers when her boyfriend broke up with her while said boyfriend behind her friend's back. They got together officially a few weeks later and had cheated on each other multiple times, not even 6 months into the relationship, but always got back together because they loved each other. I stepped away from that friend group because the drama was stupid as fuck, and even if I'm not the one directly involved in it, I don't condone that type of behavior. Cheating, lying, manipulation. Story 12, one that comes to mind at the moment. For backstory, I'm a trained mandated reporter, and my former friend's wife is a trained mandated reporter and holds a professional license in the medical field. They had one toddler and one on the way when this all came to light. We'd been friends for several years, getting together randomly, drinking, dinner, pool, darts, etc. He invited me over one night to their newly built home to shoot darts in his basement. No big deal. We'd usually have music in the background. He had not yet installed a stereo, so we figured we'd just use Pandora. But that night, he didn't have a smartphone and claimed it got ruined at work, trades. Thought no big deal and used mine. Through the years, we talked about many things. One was how different his sex drive was from his wife's. Didn't seem odd, just two people not perfectly compatible. About a week later, he asked me to meet him at a restaurant. No biggie. Not very uncommon for us. Turned out that he wanted to be in a public place when he informed me that the night before, he'd recently been to his house. Several three-letter agencies and the local police and sheriff raided his home and confiscated all his electronics. He'd fallen for a sting operation and hoped being in public would keep me from harming him. He was right, because I value my volunteer position and my family more than it'd be worth. Turned out he was charged with the largest collection of underage images and videos in that state. He'd also paid to have services done in another country. No, I don't know what. He assured me his kids were not victims. I hope that's correct. Neither his wife nor I had any inclination of this, and it's scary how well and how long he did it. The sheer number of people that I have personal knowledge of that have been arrested and convicted of acts or images of underage kids, it's truly terrifying how many there are. Story 13. A few things, all from the same friend, told us they were terminally ill, had gone far enough where he had shown me and another friend scans. I had donated a service doc to them, had doctor's letters, etc. One day we were hanging out and they have a seizure. But it was one of those, just something felt off. It went on for a long time and it was very movie feeling. I remember making eye contact with my friend and her mother, both chronically ill, and we all just hiked an eyebrow because we didn't believe it. After they came to, we insisted on taking them to the hospital. Absolutely told them because their seizure was so long they needed to go. They were super hesitant, making a lot of excuses about how their brain tumor just does that. We take them. They insist on needing a wheelchair. We get them one. We take them in and they end up getting a CT. I remember the doctor coming in and saying, "Yup, everything is normal." And they laughed and said, "Except for terminal cancer." The doctor was so confused and went on and on about there being nothing. And you could see them getting increasingly upset and dismissive. When the doctor left, they were saying, "Oh, he must have the wrong file. He doesn't know what he's doing," etc. So we get discharged. They try to pressure us into stealing them a hospital wheelchair to the point of getting super aggressive. We say no, absolutely not. Then they say because we took them to the hospital, we have to pay for their food. We were unemployed college kids with like $8 to our name. My boyfriend at the time gets us and takes us to McDonald's where we get like $6 cheeseburgers. Our friend eats 5 and we all split the last one. At this point, we are super angry but trying to stay level-headed. Drop them off at their dorm and they start screaming they're dying and they're just going to kill themselves because now we don't believe them. Honestly, we left, notified campus security, and never spoke to them again. The audacity of your so-called friend pretending to be terminally ill is downright outrageous. I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for you and your other friends to navigate through that whole ordeal, feeling a strange mixture of worry, anger, and confusion. Story 14. Oh, I've been waiting to tell this one forever. My ex-girlfriend and I, about a year and a half ago, both worked at the same fast food joint. Rhymes with Kerber Bing. Well, while there, we became closer with another couple that happened to work there. We hung out pretty often after that. Later on in the relationship, she asked if she could spend some time at their place alone, saying that she wanted some girl time with her friend. I saw no issue with that considering space is a healthy thing for relationships, so I drive her over and pick her up sometimes. She started to spend more and more time over there, and I, being the clueless idiot I am, saw nothing wrong with it. Come to find out, she was fucking the couple behind my back. My girlfriend and my 2 best friends were all fucking me over and lying straight to my face. It fucked me up badly, and I wasn't in the best mental state to begin with. After I attempted to take my own life, I was hospitalized, and she promptly called the place just to let me know she was leaving me and packing everything up out of our place and dipping. To be honest, it's just the tip of the iceberg of the things she did, and it fucked me up for a long time, but I'm doing much better without her and my so-called friends. Story 15. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was in high school. I was going through a ton with my bio dad in court on top of my mom being ill and the medical staff warning us, my brother and I, there was a chance she wouldn't survive the treatment. I was a mess and cried all the time. When my mom first started chemo, she didn't lose her hair straight away, and this girl I was friends with in elementary school made up a rumor that I was lying about her having cancer. Of course, everyone from a small-town high school ate that shit up like wildlife. I was bullied every single day and called a liar while I was having to drive my mom to chemo after school and had to get a part-time job to help support myself/my mom. It was so horrendous, I cried every single day. It got to the point where my mom had to come to a public school function and take her sock hat off to get people to leave me alone. This girl had gone so far as to make up rumors about my mom. It took a cancer patient to go to a school function to prove her kid wasn't lying. I'll never forget the look on my classmates' faces while I cried hugging my mom at the football game. The bullying promptly stopped and no one apologized to me. Story 16. This is about my acquaintance, as in my first wife's bestie's husband. These folks were the definition of vanilla. Since the wife was a homemaker, he loved to bow hunt. That's about all of the interest in them that I could see. We were both career Army and retired a year apart. Okay, the table's set, y'all sit down and eat. This dude, after retirement, gets a bit more interesting. He started cajoling his wife into things like having fun in public places, takes a keen interest in lingerie, and begins hinting at really wanting some boudoir pictures of her to keep with him on the road. Relatively harmless and sweet in a bit of a head-turning way, based on the previous behavior of being vanilla. This dude basically set up a wife swap without her knowledge with a couple they knew. The pictures traded with the other couple. The lingerie just so happened to fit the other lady. Funny that. The renewed interest in sex. Turns out it's actually easy to fool around at a barbecue 5 beers in at night. The absolute kicker, she pieced it together after finding out her news were now in the wind, aka the internet. The final step would be to get her drunk, and somehow they'd all get naked together and whatever happened, happened. Story 17. Had a friend who beat his girlfriend in front of me. We were all drinking and I was at their place to stay the night. I sensed tension but did my best to play the diplomat and ease the tension. There came a point where I realized they were gone for a minute. Went to smoke outside and I could hear them arguing. It was heated, so I lingered. That's when it got quiet and I thought, they better be chillin'. Went to knock on their door and I heard weird muffled sounds. Opened it up and he had her by the hair, hitting the back of her head and between her shoulders. She had a pillow covering her face. He said, "Get your drunk. You don't know what's going on." Albeit I was drunk, I knew what was going on. Seeing this scene sobered me up. I told him, "You're a fucked up piece of shit, man." So he turned to me. I'm always armed, so he didn't try. So I just left. I wouldn't do anything unless he did. He was the same. We kind of just stared at each other knowing this. I told everyone I knew about it. We were friends for 15 years. I never ever thought he would be capable of such abuse. I met him in 9th grade. We were kids, bandmates, and brothers. The girl and he split, and I see her with another dude. I still get asked about him, and every time it is a bittersweet feeling. He was a great guy in my eyes, until one night he passed away in my eyes with a heartbeat and still breathing, but completely gone to me.
Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.